Howdy. And quick question. Does this ever happen to you?
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
If it has, then you know that every living creature is about to dump all of their problems on you, and will inevitably try to convince you to join their weird cult. And thus enters the world of Skyrim, and the many factions that litter this icy landscape. Alright, that's enough with the cute intro. You read the title of this video. Today we are ranking the Skyrim factions from worst to best, because this is the fate I have subjected myself to, for your amusement. Let's go ahead and get on with the notes because I have some, alright. 1. The factions will be ranked based on several things, such as the design of the faction, the way they look, their whole aesthetic, all that kind of fun stuff. The members of the faction, because yes, you might have a band that you love their music, but then you figure out that every single one of them sniffs glue in their free time, so you kinda like the band a little less. The quests of the faction, basically everything they're gonna dump on you as soon as you step foot through the door, and various other small things that make them stand out against the rest, like J'zargo. I mean, J'zargo is a bonus point, I think, and you should think that too. Second, I am excluding a few factions from this list. First, the Greybeards. As much as I love my mountain grandpas, they are a central part of the story, so you don't have a choice in joining them. Also, the Blades, for the same exact reason as the mountain grandpas. They are a central faction. You can do a few smaller things for the Blades, like get new members for them, but their leader also wants you to kill Parthenax, so she can eat a brick. And the tribal orcs will eventually get their own video, that's just too much to unpack in one single little spot. And lastly, these are my opinion. You can disagree and we can still be friends, okay boo boo? And this will especially be divisive, because everyone, and I mean everyone, has completely different opinions on the factions. So please, please, please take my opinions with a big grain of salt. We're here to have some fun. Now let's go ahead and get into the list. This intro is long enough. The Coven of NAMIRA is a really cool idea for a faction that was not expanded upon as it could have been. They're basically a bunch of cannibals. So a big red flag, but their lore could be so much cooler. I mean, they have existed since the dawn of time and are basically just a cult of a Daedric prince. Well, not basically, that's what they are. They're totally just a cult of a Daedric prince. So think of these guys as a much less cool Dark Brotherhood. But yeah, they have one quest, and it is a fun quest, don't get me wrong, it's very unique, but that's about it really. However, depending on how you handle the quest, it will give you a whole bunch of unique random encounters and stuff, so that's kind of cool. The BARDS College is a college in solitude for upcoming poets, bards, and public speakers. The quests are unsurprisingly not really that vital, since it's for bards and people you would see sitting alone in a Starbucks for 6 hours. You are basically needing to get an ancient poem so that the college can hold their very special event that they can just basically rarely hold, and Solitude's not letting them do it. After you finally get the poem, you have to finish it up, which is kind of neat, I guess. It's like a neat concept, I guess. The reason I'm explaining it to you is because this is about all there is to the entire faction. Once you do that, you're a member, and you can get a few side quests, in which there are only 4. Just getting instruments for the people too lazy to get them for them freaking selves. They have some pretty good rewards, especially for a mage, but not much else. Pretty boring members too. Mainly students who have about a toothpick worth of personality. A few neat-ish teachers, but that's about it. I was debating which should go in this spot because the next 2 factions are very close for me, but I honestly feel like these 2 are kind of tied. First up, the College of Winterhold. Now, don't get me wrong. The College of Winterhold is pretty good. It's just very disappointing. I can't get the disappointment out of my mind every time I think about the college, due to the fact that there was so much cut from this faction. Far more was cut from this faction than any other faction in the game other than the Civil War, but we'll get to that. But don't get me wrong, I really adore the look of the college. I just wish it was bigger and had way more distinct areas like the one in Oblivion. I really love just about all of the classmates, especially J'zargo. Look at him. Listen to his voice. Join the calling.
The story
story is interesting enough, I suppose, but there is a ton of unanswered questions that I wish they just got elaborated on. This is the faction that had the potential to be the best in the entire game, but sadly falls a little short due to deadlines when developing the game. And being the Archmage at the end of it could have been so much cooler, instead of just basically a final ending title, that's it. Heck, joining the Cannibals awards more random interactions than being the Archmage. I'm gonna be straight up honest with you, the Thieves Guild is basically the only guild in the game that I haven't played to death. I don't know, they just never interested me much. Discount Dark Brotherhood is how I seen them. But for this video I did a ton of research for these factions, and I came to the conclusion that the Thieves Guild had a ton more to it than I ever really thought. And also I usually play a Boy Scout who never commits any crimes and helps old ladies cross the street, so this just doesn't really fit my playstyle. But this is basically an entire game spanning faction. A lot of this faction is a bunch of just odd jobs about stealing various things and getting rewards for it, but I'm pretty impressed with the amount of content I missed. And I will now punish myself by listening to Heimskir's entire speech. I'm just kidding, no man can endure that. Lay down. I find that the members all kind of just blend together, sadly, but there are a handful of neat-ish people like Brynjolf and Vex, and of course the backstabbing Mercer Frey. The story starts really slow, and that's probably why I lose interest, but it really does ramp up and becomes a really neat, quest line. I like it. Tons and tons and tons of content here though. I regret not looking into it more. I'll look into it more in future playthroughs. I'm going to put both Civil War factions right here because they're both similar in terms of progression and overall focus of the concept, and people already argue on forums about the two factions like it is a real war, and I would rather not split up thousands of viewers into a cyber mosh pit of death. But yeah, I like how they changed the world more dramatically than any other faction in the game, and I always find myself joining the Legion personally. I like them more because I disagree with their opinions way more than the Stormcloaks, and to me Skyrim is better off as a country once the Empire wins. But I do believe the Stormcloaks has way more unique members, and I adore the Stormcloaks Viking aesthetic more than the Imperials Roman one. And the Stormcloaks has a much more interesting leader than General Tullius could ever hope to be. I don't agree with Ulfric, but holy crap, he is probably the most fleshed out character in this entire game, in terms of lore at least. A lot of the meat of these factions can be found throughout the world, but aren't really key parts of the quest lines. So I didn't really include those parts of it really, because it's not really focused on in the factions. Overall, the Civil War in Skyrim is the most disappointing part of the game. This had so much, cut content that would have been awesome. Look up a video of someone talking about how much was cut from the Civil War and you will see what could have been. And now that I know all that information, I can't help but look at it like an unfinished painting. I like what it's going for, but both factions' quests are just very similar. So I'm just putting them together. I'm ready to be destroyed in the comments. The VOLKIHAR clan is a vampire faction that finally arrived in Skyrim in DLC, and it was awesome. They have probably my second favorite home base in the game, and their aesthetic works perfectly with Skyrim's setting. I love Serana with a burning passion, probably a little too much honestly, but Harkon has always just felt kind of meh to me. However, becoming a vampire emperor is probably the coolest final position you can get in the entire game. I mean, come on, just saying that out loud makes most of you drool out of your mouths. And this faction also probably has the most diverse cast of members, more unique NPCs than most other factions in the game. Overall, I love the vampires. However, I am very biased, so I'm going to drown you in my opinion regarding the other part of this DLC. I adore everything that the Dawnguard have to offer. Man, I grew up watching that old Van Helsing movie, and I was downright addicted to that growing up. I mean, I know it ain't that great, but growing up I loved it. So the first time I played this DLC, I just imagined I was in that movie, and that I was Van Helsing walking around killing vampires, and it kind of elevated this entire faction for me in my mind. Now don't worry, I know this is very opinionated, especially saying this is better than the Vampire Clan, but this is my video. I'm writing it, recording it, editing it and developing it, so deal with it. I love their entire aesthetic, their goals, and their home base. Everything about it is just perfect for me. The members could be better, sadly. Nothing compared to the wide cast that the vampires have, or even other like the college. It's just a bunch of generic warriors here, really. They do have huskies with vests. I mean, they have huskies with vests. I mean, I do love the guy who you run up to the castle with. I've always had a really soft spot for him because he just has Paul's axe, also crossbows. I wish this was expanded upon some more for the faction, but I think the faction is pretty good overall. I really like it. And don't get me wrong, the Dawnguard questline is unbelievably incredible. I think the Dawnguard questline is probably one of the best questlines in the entire game, but there are just two other factions that I feel just are, you know, way more, I don't know how to put it, Skyrim feeling than Dawnguard and the VOLKIHAR clan, whatever, the vampires. So to me, the last two entries are the definition of Skyrim feeling factions that fit the world perfectly and are just overall the best bet for the game. The Dark Brotherhood emo edgy boys are really awesome in Skyrim. The way to start the whole quest chain is super unique and is really fitting. Killing an old evil lady should be the start of every faction, I think. I especially love the entire scenario in the abandoned cabin after you go to sleep. It is just so cool. This is the faction that also has probably the best members in the entire game, rivaling the companions and the vampires. An immortal vampire child, a hot goth girl, freaking Cicero. And it has the coolest quest too, I swear. Who could ever forget the whispering mother whispering to you when you're inside the coffin, man? And freaking Shadowmere. Such an eerie and unique faction. Really engaging lore and an incredible home base. And it's also very dynamic in the way it works compared to the others. But I am a goody two-shoes. So who do you think I put at number 1? The companions are hands down my personal, let me repeat this again in case the people in the back didn't hear it, my personal opinion. They are my favorite clan. Just come on, these guys are great. They are Viking feeling warriors of Skyrim who are hired to protect the people and seek great battles. Oh, and they're freaking werewolves. Not to mention their quest is amazing. I believe the Dark Brotherhood has a better quest overall, but I think these ones fit Skyrim's aesthetic way more. And I have a big soft spot for them, don't get me wrong. I know this is hardcore opinionated, but there is a sad lack in side missions other than just some random Radiant quests that all just kind of blend together. But the main mission for them really makes up for it. And I already mentioned this, but they're freaking werewolves. The members are great the higher you go up in the food chain. I love Aella, Farkas, and Vilkas. They have my favorite home base. It's just a Viking dinner hall for Chads only. And best of all, they really make you feel like a member once you're done with their quest, because you can take any member with you when you go out to adventure. You even get a place to stay and such with all your fellow members. It's also how you become a werewolf yourself, and tons of very memorable moments like the Silver Blood Hunt and the Farkas reveal. I love them, okay man? And that's the ranking. Thank you for making it to the end and bearing with my opinions. Now the next ranking has already been selected for houses. I gotta become the Thane everywhere, so that's gonna be a blast since I just restarted the entire game for Anniversary Edition. Who knows, maybe I'll stream it. Let me know if you guys be interested in that. I got a bunch of non-rankings coming up, so keep an eye out. Anyways, thanks guys. See ya.